Hello, lovely student. Welcome to my lesson on decision making. Today we're going to be discussing selection with specific reference to the case statements. The case statement provides a very simplified layout that can replace your nested if statement. So instead of using the nested if statement to perform multiple selection, you can alternatively use the case statement. Let's look at the syntax for the case statement. It always starts with the keyword case, followed by a variable to be tested, followed by the of keyword. The variable to be tested must be of an ordinal data type. It must either be integer, char, or boolean. It cannot be of data type double. That means the variable to be tested cannot be a decimal value. Note that at the end of the of keyword, there is no semicolon. If you include a semicolon after the of keyword, the case inside the case statement, these options will not be executed. So note, do not put a semicolon at the end of your of keyword. Each case must be unique. Also note that the case statement does not have a begin, but it has a corresponding end. You can test as many different cases as you want. Each case represents a value that is being tested. So if this variable matches a particular case, it will execute the statement for that case. The statement following a case always has a colon. So after each case is followed by a colon. Then the statement and then a semicolon ends that particular statement. Let's look at how we handle compound statements. So if a case has many statements, I must have a begin and an end. Otherwise, it will only execute the first statement. So the rule again, if you're using compound statements, always have a begin and an end. I can have as many statements as I want within the begin and the end. So what happens if the variable to be tested does not match any one of these cases? Alternatively, I can handle the situation by adding an else statement. So the else statement is optional. It is used to provide a default statement if none of the cases match. When a match is found during the comparison, so when I compare this variable to any of these cases and a match is found, I then execute the statement for that case. If a match is not found, if the variable to be tested, I do not find a match in any one of these cases, I then execute the else statement and display some default message. Note again that there's no semicolon before an else statement after statement number 4. There is no semicolon at the end of the off keyword. And the case statement does not have a begin, but it has a corresponding end. So here's an example where I can show you how to use the case statement in different scenarios. The first scenario is where I can compare an option or a case or a value using commas. So this case to be tested could be, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it either can be a value 1, a value 2, a value 3, or a value 4. In this example, this particular case can either be the value 10, the value, or the value 13. So it's either 10 or 13. The second way, and also these values can be an integer value, or it could be of data type char. It could be a character A, B, C, D, etc. The second way of testing it is in a sub-range. So I'm testing in a range of values, and in this example, I'm testing if I number, which is of data type integer, does I number match this range? Is it between 2 and 9? If it is between 2 and 9 and it matches, then my output will display 2 to 9. The last way of doing it is a combination between comma-separated values and values in a sub-range. So in this particular example, I am checking if I number is either 11 or 12, or it could be in a range between 14 and 20, both inclusive. If I number matches this case, it then goes and displays between 10 and 20, but not the number 13. If I number does not match any of the cases, it will then go into the else statement that is your default and display the words something else. Also remember, just like the nested if, the case statement can only execute one of the cases. If I number is the number 1, it will only execute 1, it will display 1, and it will exit to the end. In this example, we're looking at marks of a typical South African schooling system with levels. So if the mark was entered between 80 to 100, both inclusive, it will display the level 7. If the mark was between 0 and 29, both inclusive, it will display the level 1. So let's look at how a typical Delphi program will look for this scenario. So the variable to be tested is iMark, and iMark is of data type integer. So I'm checking if it matches any one of the following cases. So if iMark is between 0 to 29, both inclusive, now I'm checking in a range of numbers. Then sComment, which is a variable created, will be initialized a string value of level 1. If it is between 30 to 39, level 2. If it is between 40 to 49, level 3. If it is between 50 to 59, level 4. 60 to 69, level 5. And let's go on to 80 to 100, level 7. If iMark does not match any one of the cases, it will then go into the else statement and display invalid mark. Okay, so let's look at an activity based on the case statement that I just discussed. Right, so we're writing a Delphi program and I'm going to do this coding and discussion with you. A user makes a choice from a radio button group, and depending on the choice he or she makes, the following is displayed. So there's an example of what your radio group button is going to look like, where the user is either going to select Coca-Cola, cream soda, or Fanta grape. So if the user selects on the radio button Coca-Cola, a message must be displayed, "You selected Coca-Cola." If the user selects cream soda, a message must be displayed, "You selected cream soda." If the user selects Fanta grape, a message, "You selected Fanta grape," must be displayed. Let's take a look at what the Delphi coding is going to look like. Okay, so here's our Delphi program. I've created a project and I've called my project using case. I have a GUI, a front-end development created for you. It has a form, a panel with a heading, a radio group selection, a memo, and 3 buttons that I'm going to be discussing code with you. So let's look at the question using a nested if. So I've created a variable and I've called it iSelectedItem. Now you know the radio group. If I select the item, let's go back to that. If I select the item, it's going to give me Coca-Cola, cream soda, and Fanta grape. But if I want the item index, I'm now looking at what index is Coca-Cola, what index is cream soda, and what index is Fanta grape. And using a radio group, it starts at index 0. So if the user selected an index and it was 0, it will select Coca-Cola. If the index was selected 1, it will select cream soda. So now let's look at that program again. So I'm getting the item index using the radio group. Okay, I cleared my memo and then I'm checking if the item selected equals 0. If it is equal to 0, it's going to display "You selected Coca-Cola." If the item selected is 1, it's going to go into my else if statement and it will check if the item is 1, and if 1 was selected, it will display "You selected cream soda." If it wasn't 0 or 1, it will then go and check if the item selected was 2. And if the item selected was 2, it will display "You selected Fanta grape." If none of the options were selected, it will go into your else statement and it will display "You have not selected a cool drink." So now let's look at the coding. If I had to use a case statement instead of a nested if. So again, I created my variable iSelectedItem to select the item index from the radio group. I've also created an S message, which is of data type string. I'm getting a value from the radio group, but remember it's the item index. I cleared my memo, and now I'm checking case iSelectedItem. Remember that the case statement can only work for ordinal data types. So iSelectedItem is of data type integer, and it will work very nicely with the case statement. So here I'm checking if the case is 0, the message, S message, which is my variable, is going to take on the string literal "You selected Coca-Cola." If the case was 1, if the item selected is 1 and it matches this case, it will then display you selected cream soda. If I selected item was 2, S message will be assigned the string literal you selected Fanta grape. If none of the cases match the selected item, it will go into the else statement and it will display you have not selected a cool drink. Let's run this program and see how it works with both of these. So again, what I've done, on my onCreate event of the form, I changed the background color and I made it teal. Right, so that also makes your GUI design looks pretty smart, I think. All right, so let's look at it. So if I was using nested if, you have not selected a cool drink. So now it forces me to select something. Okay, so let's select cream soda. You selected cream soda. Let's select Fanta grape. And it goes, you selected Fanta grape. So if I was using the case statement, using case, let's select Coca-Cola. You selected Coca-Cola. And now let's select Fanta grape. You selected Fanta grape. Program works very nicely. The case statement is a lot easier. It's also very nice to read. And if you want to expand and add additional values too, it makes programming very simple. I've created a little button here called characters, and I want to quickly show you how I would use characters. Okay, so what I've done is I've created a variable called cLetter, data type char. I am getting a letter using an input box, and I've converted the letter using uppercase to all capital letters. Then it makes it very easy for me to check one case, only uppercase characters. So what I'm checking here is if cLetter, which is of data type char, does it match A, E, I, O, or U? Individual characters separated by a comma. And if cLetter matches any of these characters, it will then display is a vowel. If it does not match, if cLetter does not match this case, it will go into the else statement and it will display is a consonant. Let's take a look at how this segment works. Okay, so if I had to enter a character and I entered a capital letter E, it will give me is a vowel. And if I entered a capital letter Z, it will give me is a consonant. Thank you, learners, for listening. Have a great day ahead. Stay focused, stay motivated and inspired, and follow me on my next lesson.